on Australia's business channel. This is Mediaweek.
Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, more cost cutting for the media sector. The launch of Bike Magazine at Pacific Magazines, and we'll look at round one of the cooking show's ratings battle. All that and more coming up. But first, what will the longest election campaign in Australian political history mean for the media sector? The Prime Minister surprised this week, revealing early the election date of September 14 in a bid to end uncertainty. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our co-host, James Matting, the editor and publisher of Mediaweek, with more. James, what's it going to mean? I mean, is it going to be more ad spending? Is it going to be better for the sector? Or is it going to cost more as well, covering it?
The media sector will be hoping there'll be more ad spend. In theory, you've got the longer campaign, but I think, the Prime Minister talked about when the writs are issued for the election, that's when she thinks the campaign will really start. So I think they'll probably hold their fire till later in the year. For specialist media people like Sky News, it's great. They've got a date they can work to. They've just recently started a lot of new political programming, so it's great for them. I think the general media, they were going to be very careful of not giving their audience too much politics between now and the election date, because we've found for a lot of talk radio shows, for a lot of for television shows, things like A Current Affair, the news bulletins, too much politics can be a big turn off for viewers.
All right, let's get some more on this, because we did see Fairfax Media Chairman Roger Corbett and an RBA board member, of course, as well, critical of the Prime Minister's decision, saying that the election date should actually be moved forward. Well, let's get some more on this. We're joined now by the Fairfax Metro Media Head of Marketing and Communications, Robert Whitehead, joining us from our Melbourne studio. Robert, thanks so much for joining us. Just firstly, what does the long election campaign mean for Fairfax? I mean, is this good or bad news?
I think there are two parts to this. The first part is having a date out there is really good for business certainty. Our clients can plan, we can know when the advertising will hit, and it gives us the opportunity really to work those 7.5 months really hard. Elections are always good for the print business. Political parties know the power of print in reaching our swinging voters especially. And on the journalistic side, it gives the opportunity to get everything planned right down to that last detail and make certain that we don't run out of puff. Keep in mind, it's just the same as we have with many state elections now, with fixed terms. We know exactly what's going to happen when.
Robert, you're a former editor of the Sydney Morning Herald as well. In the lead up to an election, have you got to be careful of overdoing it for the readers? And do you think the political parties will be spending more?
James, I think you have to be really careful in the way you plan election coverage these days. There's news coming at you 24/7 in so many different ways, not just from traditional broadcasters and media outlets, but from your friends and everyone's tweets and posts. And it's really important that the highs and lows of a coverage are planned really, really carefully. And this is going to put that to the test. In terms of how much the political parties are going to have to spend, we know this is going to be a close contest, and we know media outlets like Fairfax are going to be really critical in reaching those key voters.
Let's turn to the reason that you are also here on the show, and that's to talk about the new Fairfax brand campaigns for the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Just take us through them. I mean, is this the idea behind the campaigns to drive readers to hard copy or to digital editions, or is it just sort of to generally get the brands out there?
The first step is generally get the brands out there. Last year we announced a big investment in our publications. We're launching next month, in March, a very big transformation of our weekday editions into the compact format. Not long after that, we'll be announcing digital subscriptions for our websites and tablets and mobile sites. And it's really important as a first step that we get the branding right, that we entrench our mastheads in each of its communities and make certain that we're in really tip-top shape.
Interesting. Then you gave us a little sample of what's ahead for the company. So the compact edition will come first before the changes to the sort of online access?
Yes, that's right. We've announced that the compact will release in March, and it's all systems go for that launch, and we'll have more details of that in about 4 weeks. we've got so many other publication changes at the same time. It's not funny, James. I can't recall a time when we have had so much on the development slate. It's a very exciting time where we are. We've got new looks for the websites and the mobile sites, new updates for the tablet editions. And we've got to get everything, all the ducks lined up for our readers to make certain that later in the year when we ask them to pay for access to our digital products, that they see the value in what we do.
So yeah, I guess your job as the head of marketing, I mean, you've got to make sure you've got a lot of messages to get out. You've got to try and keep it as simple as possible for the readers, because they're already getting bombarded with choice, aren't they? Whether they get the hard copy, whether they go digital, whether they go online. You've got two different sorts of iPad app.
Yeah, so what we're doing at the moment is starting with the brand message, making certain that we are on the same wavelength as our consumers. We've done the most extensive research that we've ever done in this place. And what we're doing is not going out and talking about product features first and foremost. We're going out to talk about the masthead, the roles that the mastheads play in our readers' lives. Our readers have helped shape those messages so that we understand the unique connection that each has with their readers, because they're quite different between Sydney and Melbourne.
I just wanted to ask you, Robert, you know, looking at the marketing budget, I mean, we're talking about this long election campaign ahead of us. Is it under pressure at Fairfax Media, and have you had to fight for these campaign dollars? Obviously, it seems like a pretty big spend.
Look, this is going to be the most extensive investment we've ever made in brand, and we need to do that as part of the great transformation that we're going through. This is the biggest change in media in our generation, and the great change in media in the 21st century has to be led by audiences. And to do that, we've got to invest in making certain that we are wherever our readers are. We're giving them news and information in the formats they want, whenever and wherever they want them. And we've got to make certain our mastheads are robust enough to make that transition into new devices that you know, a couple of years ago we hadn't even dreamed of.
Robert, you're talking to us down in Melbourne. I think you're down there probably doing some presentations for these campaigns, explaining them. Are there different audiences for your papers in Sydney and Melbourne? What are the things that differentiate the brands?
Look, it's interesting. I've spent half my life in Sydney and half my life in Melbourne. I've worked on The Age a couple of times and the SMH a couple of times. And there are lots of similarities, but right now it's clear that there are distinct differences, not just in the cities, but in the readers and the relationships that they have with The Age and the SMH respectively. In Melbourne, it's very much about learning for learning's sake, to improve oneself, and it's really a high value proposition that people read The Age knowing that they will be, for want of a better expression, a better person. Whereas in Sydney, they want to know things so that they can tell their friends that they know things. They want to use it more or less as an external expression of their progress. The Sydney audience is very ambitious, and the Melbourne audience is ambitious in a different way, not for personal progress. They want to know things for the sake of knowing things.
Robert, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Robert Whitehead there from Fairfax Metro Media. All right, just back to, of course, the story about the election date being set early by the Prime Minister this week. Time to find out what it means for the media sector's performance on the share market. Here's Evan Lucas from IG.
The biggest news out of media this week has actually been the federal election being called for the 14th of September. Obviously, yesterday we saw Prime Minister Gillard calling it early. It's going to be the longest lead-up to an election since World War II, which is a 7.5-month sort of campaign. One thing that we note in the media sector, particularly for this, is that with Citigroup upgrading their revenue outcast for advertisement for Seven West Media and also for 10 over this coming year, the increase in expenditure from both sides of the political divide should definitely be one of the things we'll be looking for in the media sector. Both FXJ, also 10 and also Seven West Media have yet to sort of see that come through. However, we will be looking to sort of the Q3 and Q4 sort of sales reports to see whether or not the impact of the federal election being the longest it's been since that period of time will actually be affecting it. So going forward, the media sector will be obviously looking to sort of increase its revenue with the increase in the political expenditure.
All right, coming up on Mediaweek, we'll be speaking to the editor of new magazine titled Bike.